Welcome to Arsenal above all. Some of us, what some of us thought would have been a lunchtime stroll, turned into a little stumble at Goodison Park where we came unstuck against the Toffeemen. However, Trophy Dodgers FC came in clutch and beat City to maintain our 5-point lead. So we've got a bit to talk about tonight. Obviously, we've got some two massive games to come. And joining me tonight is my man, Neil Shah. How you doing, Neil?
I'm all right, thanks. How you doing, Michael?
I'm good, man. Better than I was Saturday mid-afternoon.
Correct.
But yeah, we've got a lot to talk about. And thanks for coming on as always, man.
Pleasure.
And also I have my good man, Stephen. They call me Stepney Osakwe. How you doing, my friend?
All good, all good. Good to be back.
Good to have you back, man. It seems like it's been like a few months since I last spoke to you. I don't know why it feels like that. It just feels mad. So obviously disappointing Saturday lunchtime. Another frustrating experience against Everton. It was nil. Credit to Daesh, to be fair. You had them wound up, you had them organised in a short space of time. I was probably disappointed in the way that we sort of came out. We lost a few duels. We seemed to get bullied a little bit. Seemed a little bit lethargic. I don't know whether that was because of the early kickoff again. Because you don't seem to necessarily do well in those. But what was your thoughts in general, Neil, of the performance and where it leaves us? Obviously, going into the big one on Saturday against Brentford.
Yeah, of course, disappointing. Any loss is a disappointment. I didn't think that would happen to us because we've displayed some good performances away this season. We've grown up, we've matured. It's appeared up until the Everton game that we weren't going to be bullied off the park, not just by the players, but by the oppressive fans in the away stadiums. We've shown that in abundance this season, bar the Man United game where, as we've said before, we actually probably outperformed them anyway. It's just one of those things. But so I wasn't expecting that. And I just felt, number one, as you said, credit to Everton, credit to Daesh, because actually, his normally anti-tactic football was there, but they actually played some good stuff as well, to be fair. They were moving it around. They seemed quicker. They seemed hungrier. Onana was out of this world. Maybe he could have been a January signing for us, because I think he would have suited our style of play very well if that's what he can do. But credit to them, they outplayed us. We were sucked in to their gameplay, and I, as upset as I was, I have to say, at least they deserved it. I think they deserved it, to be fair, guys, because we could have easily been 2 or 3-0 down at half time. I felt that the scoreline actually flattered us in a way, losing only by one goal. For us, from our point of view, I just felt we lost a little bit of that fire that we've been showing literally every game this season. We seemed tired, we seemed leggy, we seemed second to the ball. We didn't seem, before what I've seen in this season, when the opposition gets the ball, we get it back so quickly. We have 2 or 3 on them. And when the ball is kind of loose, it seems to just fall to one of our players. All of it wasn't working. None of it was working. Mm-hmm. And I looked at it and I thought, two things: disappointment, because I feel that when you're a championship winning side, they learn a way of even winning or grinding out a result even when they're playing bad, and we didn't do that, unfortunately, this time. But on the other side of the coin, I just thought, well, we didn't deserve it. We actually didn't deserve it, and this is coming from an Arsenal fan. Yeah. So, and credit to Everton. I'm not quite sure what else to say. I think I've got to give it to Daesh. I've never really liked the guy, but as you said, Michael, in such a short spell of time, and it was a bit of a Burnley connection, wasn't it, that led to that goal. So they obviously know him very well. They know how he operates, what he wants from the players.
Yeah,
I don't really have many more complaints really than that. That's how I saw it.
Yeah, I totally agree. Steve, would you say though? There could be an element of us being a little bit predictable. The fact that Daesh could set up a team that quickly and have and put them in places. For example, Saka, for example. There were times when he was getting the ball, and by the time he took the second touch, McNeil had come back and doubled up on him, and it just seemed like every time he hit the ball without, again, a lot of the play, if you look at the field tilts or whatever it is, most of our attacking was done down the right hand side, and it looks like we sometimes become a little bit predictable because we know how good Saka is, and it seems like Martinelli isn't really utilised as much as Saka is. And for me, the amount of times in that first half where Saka got the ball and the fullback held him up, and then it allowed McNeil to sort of double up, and then he had to come inside again. If he'd have just maybe attacked and drove at him a little bit more, O'Neill wouldn't have been able to. Wouldn't have been able to do that as much. But it just seemed that it was a little bit predictable. What did you think? And obviously, what were your thoughts on the general performance?
Yeah, just to echo everything that Neil said, and then to go back to a previous podcast that I think both you and I, Neil, were on, and it's not the big teams I fear. It's not the so-called big teams that I fear that we are going to lose against, because I don't think we'll lose those games. It's these teams that we will come unstuck against. If anybody, if we're going to come unstuck, the Southampton game was similar in that sort of sense when we talked about it before. Yes, we have come a little bit predictable. As you said, a lot of stuff does go down Saka's wing and not so much Martinelli's wing. I just think in that game, Everton always had that performance in them. They just didn't get it out of Frank. Just didn't get it out of them. I think that's first and foremost, because they're pretty much all the same players, right? Apart from Anthony, who went to Newcastle. So they've got it in them. Their midfield was absolute dynamite. And when we go back to it, and when Arteta looks at it, he'll say a couple of things. The first thing is he'll go, look, you got beat. Okay, you can't perform like that and expect to win. Sloppy passes, second to your duels. You can't perform like that and win. So that won't happen again. Okay, he'll get that message in. That won't happen again, because as we've seen with the Amazon show, it was, I don't accept that sort of level of performance, and you shouldn't accept it yourselves. There'll be players in that dressing room, your Zinchenko's, your Xhakas, your Ramsdales, your Gabriels, that will be all echoing the same things. Guys, we cannot perform like that again. If you want to be champions, as Mike said, you have to be able to perform even when the chips are down, and you didn't. So yes, Dyche got it absolutely spot on. He just said, just win those duels, and everything else will come afterwards. And he doubled up on Saka, as you said. Every single time he got the ball, within seconds, there's a second man. And while Arteta would have been saying, just play your game, he's also got to say to them, know when to be quicker with your passes. Your passes have to be concise, they have to be crisp, and they have to be on point, because they're going to get picked up. And if they are getting picked up, then you need to be second to that ball. It's a one-off.
Yeah.
If I was on Twitter right now, I'd be there going, yeah, Arteta out. He hasn't got a clue. Just get Jose in. Why are you panicking for? We're still top of the league, regardless of whatever the result was the following day. We were still top of the league. We were still 5 points clear at that point, and we still had a game in hand. So even if the results didn't go our way, we still would have been 2 points clear with a game in hand. And Arteta will be saying to him, we've got the points on the board, but we've got the game in hand to get some extra points on the board.
Yeah. And
that I think will come out in the next couple of games. So yeah, credit to Sean Dyche. Everton were the better side. I said that to my friend who's an Everton fan. I just said, we didn't deserve it. We didn't deserve anything from the game. And their midfield was absolutely outstanding.
Yeah. Just the worry that for me was just the frustration at the end. We got sucked in a little bit. A lot of the stuff. Obviously, Marpie came on and did what he normally does against us. But yeah, just a worry that someone like Zinchenko, who obviously he wears his heart on his sleeve, but he's one of the most experienced guys in the team. He's won 3 league titles already, and he just lost his head a bit. That's he should be one of the most composed ones and not get sucked in. He had a bit of a running battle with the fans on that side, and Everton, their fans are notorious. As soon as something sparks, they that's it. They're up. And I think for me, it was weird up until the moment Saka almost got his eye taken out. It seemed to switch after that moment, because I noticed when we had the ball and we were attacking in the first 15, 20 minutes, there was like almost a hush in the stadium when they had it from the Everton fans. They were worried, they were concerned. When Saka got his injury, again they booed. They started booing him, cheering him, thinking that he's feigning injury, and that just got their backs up. And then from that moment, I think guys switched over Iwobi and O'Neill. And then they changed. Their performance went up. The fans got. So it's funny how that affected things as well. And we just seem to get, I wouldn't say, I'll say bullied a little bit, where we just cowered a little bit, in that environment. And the disappointing thing for me for the game was that I thought, moments like this had gone, where we weren't going to get influenced by things like that. But like you said, it's one game. It's an off performance. They created the more clearer chances. If we would have gone in 2-0 down at half time, we would have said we pretty much deserved that, because there were really good chances that they missed. But in terms of that, guys, I mean, would you, looking ahead to the Brentford game, Neil, would you be looking at maybe bringing a couple of players in just to refresh it a little bit? Because maybe Saka's, receiving the ball and maybe he's got something. He's got that that link with Ben White, hasn't he? Whereas White plays those balls into him, and his form's dipped a little bit. Now I know he's Steve's boy, but his form's dipped slightly. We say what we say as we see it on here. But his form's dipped a little bit. So would you maybe look at changes in that area? Obviously, knowing it's Brentford and all respect to Brentford, would you rather make a change in that game rather than the one afterwards, or would you keep it the same? What would your approach be to the Brentford game?
Well, that's a tough one, because no, I don't know. I've just talked myself out of it thinking about it. I was going to say I don't know how that would affect the mentality of some of the players, but I don't. I think we've got a really good collective where everyone is playing for each other and they know the score, and they know that if they don't perform too well, there's a chance now, because we've been concerned about the depth in our squad, but just those 3 signings have actually made a huge difference in key areas. Of course, we can switch White for Tommy. Might not be a bad shout, because Brentford's quite a physical side. He's quite a strong lad. Not saying White isn't, but he doesn't do maybe so much of the forward running and the overlaps that White's been so brilliant at. But Tommy can add something, I guess. But I think generally, Michael, I'm not so sure I would change too much. I think this is the 11 that's got us to where we are now.
Yeah.
And I think it would be very unfair as soon as we have one bad game. Oh no, you need to be dropped. You need to be dropped. The only reason why I may drop 1 or 2 players is if they're showing fatigue, signs of fatigue. That's a different kettle of fish. Then maybe we have got the options to put someone else in who's probably not far from that level. We've got the Trossards of this world. we've got Jorginho, who I think when we went 1-0 down, I kind of started switching off a little bit, but he didn't have a bad game from what I hear. You guys can correct me. Excuse me. But we've got options if need be. But I wouldn't tinker with it too much. I mean, I think Trossard, for me, is still the best that I've seen in the newbies. I think he's a player.
Yeah.
I think Martinelli needs someone like him to push him further and to improve him, to say that I've got a challenge. Just going back on one thing you said, which I find actually now is quite surprising. The fact that we were all very right-sided is a bit of a mystery, because, Zinchenko's a hell of a player. And why didn't we utilise more of Zinchenko linking up with Martinelli? It is a bit of a mystery. I don't know. But it just seems to be a default, isn't it? It's almost like a natural curve to play from the right, because we know how amazing and how good Saka is. But it is a strange one. But yeah, just to go back to your question, I think you guys may say something different, but I wouldn't like to change it up just yet. I don't think that would be the right call to make unless there's fatigue. That's the only reason why I'd do it.
Yeah. Steve, what would you do? Would you agree, go along with Neil? Not keep it pretty much the same. Let these players, who have been amazing, and this 11, has been amazing so far, and it got us to where we are. Give them a chance to go full guns blazing on Saturday against Brentford, to allay any fears that there may be a little bit of a wobble, especially with what's to come.
Again, like Neil said, it's a tough one. And it will lead on to a question that I'll ask at the end. But Arteta has to trust his squad. And by that, I just mean he can make those changes. He can bring in Tommy for Ben. Tommy can play more in while Ben overlaps a bit more, if you see what I mean. So Tommy can tuck in. I don't think it's right to start Trossard just yet. I know a lot of people have been calling for it and starting next game and this, that, and the other. I don't think there's any real rush to change the front three. Yes, he does add something different, but if anything, he could drop him for Eddie, for example, and Eddie gets a break. It's a difficult one. Like I said, me personally, I think I agree with Neil. I'm not making too many changes. I don't think it's that sort of. I don't think we have to panic. Players have bad games. Not every team could go a season unbeaten. Do you know what I mean? It's not easy. It's not easy. And usually,
Steve, has anyone ever done that before? I'm racking my brain here.
I don't know, man. It's a tough one. I'll have to go back. I have to go back to a certain time to have a think, but yeah, who knows? I'm sure there's one team that's done it in my lifetime. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what Arteta does, but I don't think we need to make. I don't think the whole thing about changes and saying that you need changes is because there's a panic. There's that instant. Oh, we're not doing so well. They didn't play so well. Every team that hasn't gone a season unbeaten and has won the league has had games like that.
Yeah.
Nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
You just chalk it off and just go, right, we lost it. It's not like there was major controversy in their win. As you both rightly said, they dominated. They were first to every duel. They deserved the win. So, you just sort of have to hold your hands up and go, okay, collectively we had a bad performance. Collectively we need to improve that. If against Brentford, he does keep the same team, which is what I expect he will do. And there's still players maybe not to that certain level. I think we'll see earlier substitutions to rectify that so that those players can go into the next game with a few minutes behind their belt.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you're right about... league champions normally, they lose 3 or 4, maybe 5 games a season. 6, it used to be 6, 7 on average games a season until City came along, which we'll touch on in a bit, and Liverpool sort of changed things a bit where they were just losing, 1 or 2 games a season or 3 games a season. And I think for the younger generation, obviously, of Arsenal fans who weren't, old enough to sort of appreciate the Invincibles, for example.
Oh yeah, that's the thing.
There were times where we know there were times when there were times when that Invincible season where we played some games and we stunk the place out. A lot of people look at it on paper and think, wow, unbeaten. Yeah, there were some games where we were awful.
Oh yeah,
we were awful, and they reflected into draws. And there were times when they turned into wins because of the genius of Henry or Vieira or Bergkamp.
Wasn't there one game we were really struggling and Reyes got an equaliser right very near the end? I seem to remember that, unless I'm thinking of a different season, but I'm sure it was that one. We were thinking, oh no, is this going to be the one? And then he just managed to get. We were played awful that day, so it happens. You're right. Anyway, whichever one it was, but you're right.
Yeah, but there were games where I think we drew with Fulham at home that season, 0-0. Fulham, and I think they just kind of they weren't pulling up any good at all. But We drew with them. So yeah, there are games like like I said, there will be games like that. There will be more games. There was 19 games to go. Well, there was 18 games to go. So there will be more games like that, I'm sure. We've got a couple of tricky places to go to before the season's out, obviously. But yeah, we'll hopefully, obviously all of us will hope that we bounce back against Brentford. Obviously, the last time we played them, we turned them over 3-0. Vieira scored a great goal when Odegaard was out injured, but that was a surprise. I'm just thinking, I just think the whole we've become a little bit predictable. I think the team can see that we've got the least changes of any team in the Premier League. So I think it comes to a point where he may have to just look at things a little bit differently. Do we tack down a different side, or is it something? But you can't knock it. Obviously, where we are on the table, we're top and everything. So, but no, thanks for that, guys. So what we'll do next, we'll talk about the big topic of the last couple of days. If you've been living under a rock, I don't know what you've been doing if you have, but yeah, we'll talk about our title rivals and all that stuff after this. Oh boy. So obviously everyone in the football world and knows what happened. Man City have been charged by the Premier League over financial irregularities. I think was it 115 charges, and obviously City are going to fight against that. So there's going to be pretty hefty court case to Premier League clubs. Are saying they want it to be decided or resolved by the end of the season, which is going to be interesting if that happens or not. Neil, I mean, it's obviously it's a touchy subject. Everything's obviously allegedly and stuff like that. But if it's true, then they are charged, and it comes to light that they're true. They did all of that. What do you think message that sends to the Premier League in terms of the integrity of the competition, as going, obviously the say should never look back, but obviously looking back at everything that's happened, and also looking forward for other clubs that have the same, who may have the same deep pockets. What do you think? Are we at kind of like a crossroads in terms of this case, and what will happen moving forward?
You see, this was the first thing that I thought about, because I thought the Premier League is the strongest and most attractive league, I think, now in the world. And it's definitely, you've got glamour clubs being able to pull in the biggest stars, so, find the up and coming big stars, the ones that have already done it, and then they come. Yeah. And the surprise is Messi never decided to come to the Premier League, but that's probably the only one exception, to be fair. And you then look at or hear something like this. I mean, we've been down this road before, and there was slapped with a fine, which to them is nothing. I mean, even if they got a £10 billion fine, probably wouldn't be anything to them. But you know what I mean. It's
no.
But this is slightly different, I think, because it's a long investigation, and I think it's going back to 2008, between 2008 and 2019, or 2007 and 8, something like that. Yeah. Anyway, it's a long period, and let me just get this out of the way. As far as we are concerned, I think we should not worry about it, not get involved, just carry on as we are, focus on us. I mean, that should be the way anyway. Even thinking about the game ahead next Thursday, we just don't even think about what's happened, because the last thing that I would want Arteta or any of the players to start thinking about this, thinking, oh, City might not be up for it, or they may be, because they've got all of this stuff that's going on. But no. But that is one thing we cannot worry about. So no, that's just a little bit digression there, but I just wanted to get that out.
Yeah.
So that we just focus on us. We just carry on doing what we do. We stick to our game plan, and that's it. But as far as this is concerned, this could be massively detrimental to the Premier League. Because if it comes out, and we've seen massive punishments handed out to Rangers, Juventus, I think it is. I'm not too familiar with it, but they may follow suit. And if that happens, they could be in trouble. I don't know whether it will be a combination of a fine, point deduction, maybe an expulsion from the Champions League, or they could even do one even worse and maybe even relegate them or put them to a lower division. And for them, that's going to be terrible, terrible. But how will that affect other clubs? Yes. Everyone will be thinking, oh, God, they're going to come after us now. What's going to happen next?
Yeah.
And I only hope. I have not been Kroenke's biggest fan, as you know. Michael, you may know as well, Stephen. But I hope that things have been run the right way, no matter what's been going on. End of the day, the way I see life, I'm a cynic anyway. I'm a miserable old cynic, and anything to do with power and money, there's always going to be some form or some level of naughtiness going on, some sort of corruption.
Yeah.
Arsenal are not they're not a poor club. They're a very powerful, rich club. So I can't say for sure nothing underhand has gone on. You can't. None of us may never even know. However, I just like to hope that we have run things as well as we should have, or shown a true and fair view in the statements and done things the right way. And if any due diligence was going to take place, they won't find or uncover anything nasty. Because it can. I think some other clubs are going to get caught up in this as well.
Yeah.
And if they set a precedence with Man City and punish them quite harshly, they're going to have to follow suit with the others as well. So that could have a real domino effect on the integrity, as you said earlier, Michael, on the Premier League. And what does that mean going forward for the rest of the nation, the rest of the clubs that are in it? So yes, this is big stuff, I think. But it's going to take time to sort out. It's going to take a long time. This ain't going to be resolved in the next couple of weeks. I think it could take a long time.
They've been investigating for 4 years, haven't they? So it's and that's probably partly as well to, I think, allegedly City not wanting to comply or provide certain evidence. Steve, what do you think? Do you think there'll be a cloud over City? Will it be something that could instigate, maybe the spark that Pep's been calling for the last couple of weeks, saying he doesn't recognise his team anymore? I imagine, I think the atmosphere was going to be really hot next week, Wednesday, but I think it's going to be even more so now because the City fans, I have a good City friend, and he's not happy, obviously, with the accusations, and I imagine the City fans will come down with, massive chips on their shoulders, and wanting to prove a point, and obviously that will try and get that across to the team. And I think they'll come down to try, and because they know obviously there's history between the clubs in the board levels. Arsenal were one of the clubs that wanted them kicked out over the Champions League stuff, the UEFA stuff. Sorry, with FFP. And so what are you thinking? What kind of City do you think will come out of this? Obviously, as Neil says, we should just focus on those 11 guys that are on the pitch and do our job. But do you think this gets things a little bit harder, or for us, or what?
To again echo Neil, the players don't care, if you know what I mean. They're not involved.
Yeah.
I get that they will understand what's been happening, but they're not involved. The manager will say, "Did you do it?" Well, no, of course not. It's not me that's done it. So the players go out and they still perform. You don't drop your standards just because of an investigation into the club, because if you do that, then you're automatically throwing in the towel. And Pep wouldn't let that happen anyway. The players themselves wouldn't let that happen because, as things stand, they're still challenging for the title, and in many people's views, outside of ours, they're still title favourites. They're in the Champions League still. They're still in the FA Cup, so they've still got a lot to play for. I know people have talked about things that, like, stripping them of titles and stuff like that. That's never happened, so it's not likely to happen. Points deduction, would it happen? If it is, then they'd need to do it soon, and they need to present their information, because if they've said we've been investigating this for 4 years and this is what we've got, then it should be watertight. Yes, there'll be legal battles and everything else, but if it's watertight, then you just go, well, this is it. I can't see either manager saying, anything other than it's business as usual. This isn't our fight. You can't influence it in any way. You can't do anything about it. All you can do is go out there and win your games. And when we look at Juventus, for example, when they've had points deductions, this isn't new for them. They've had so many times in the past. Their team still managed to carry on playing because it's not the players.
Yeah.
And the players still want to win because they'll still look at the league. Let's say City got a 15-point deduction, they'll still go, we can claw that back. So they're still going to want European football. They're still going to want to play for pride. And as Neil said, Arteta is just going to say to them, our players, this is still Man City. They're still the champions. And if you want to be champions, you've got to beat the champions. Don't think that they're going to give you an easy ride. That this whole thing is going to distract them in any way, shape, or form. They are the champions for a reason, and they will come out and they will want to win the game. I said there's differences between Pep and Arteta and say someone like a Jose, for example. Wenger and Sir Alex were the same as well. It was win the game, always win the game. That was first and foremost. When you hear other managers, like I said, I use Jose as a classic example because the media used to love him when he used to grind out a result, when his team were by far the best team in the land. I remember his second stint when they were cruising up to Christmas and I think they got a draw. And I said to one of my Chelsea friends that I was working with at the time, and I just said, Are you happy with that? He went, yeah, we grind out a result. I went, you shouldn't be grinding out a result. I said, you should go over there and spank that team. I said, Jose set you up negatively. And then the following season, players like Hazard and stuff like that was just like, you know what, I'm actually tired of defending because I play more freely. Yeah. And, he was gone after that. So, yeah, Arteta will say, guys, we win the game. Pep will say, guys, we win the game. The players themselves will say, guys, we win the game. And any other thing is just a distraction outside of what they can control. And it's not a thing.
Yeah, I just think that definitely the City will come out with a point to prove. Us being the challengers, and obviously everyone talking about they're not the City that as they've been. This is a perfect chance for them to give us a bloody nose or on our home patch. Obviously, we played all right in the cup game, obviously, which we had a bit of a change up of the team. But I just think with all that's happened, they're going to use this as some fuel to galvanise something. Which is, again, it says something about them that it might take something like this to actually get them playing the way that we know they have. But there's been lots of rumours about. Haaland and everything. Things are not happy in the camp and what have you. So that would be interesting to see. But I'm just going back to the actual lineup and everything in terms of the Brentford game. Do you think Arteta looks at that game on Wednesday in terms of certain individuals maybe hitting the red zone a little bit and maybe keeping his powder dry a bit and making sure that they're ready for the Wednesday game? I know he's come out and said if you're a top player you need to play every 3 days. You've got to play every 3 days. So maybe I'll answer my own question. But do you think he looks at that far ahead to next week, this time next week, or do you think he's just looking at Brentford playing the stronger team as he can, and then worry about however the dice may fall with injuries or whatever? What do you think, Neil? Do you think he's looking at that far ahead, or do you just focus on that Brentford game and play a stronger team as you can?
No, from what I've said of Arteta, he takes one game at a time. So no, I don't think he is. As big as a game as it is, they're all big games, Michael, to be fair.
Well, yeah.
And to be honest, this is the first time this season, correct me if I'm wrong, that we're coming off the back of 2 losses. So he'll want everything, guns firing against Brentford. We're lucky it's at home, so we've got a home fixture. So hopefully we've got the crowd behind us. I can't see us losing it. I just can't. I think Arteta's going to really just say this is the game. Don't think about nothing else. This is your FA Cup final this year. You go for it and you win it, and that's it. I'm not going to take anything else. And I think that's it. And then we'll worry about the Man City game after that's done. See how hopefully there'll be no injuries. Hopefully there'll be no red cards, and it'll be all. He can have a full choice, and then he can decide what he needs to do with the team. But no, I can't see anything. I think, do you know what, Stephen? You made a really good point, which I hadn't even thought of, about the spark. This actually could work in their favour, bizarrely enough. It could do. It could do. It could be like, right, God, what's going to happen to us? This could be our last ever season in the Premiership. we better go out with a bang. So you never know. But no, Brentford, no, it's our cup final. We got to win it, Michael. Full strength. Go for it.
Yep. Would you say, Steve? Say
you can't. As Neil said, Arteta's not one to go, yeah, but I've got this game here, so I'm going to need these players for that game. And again, we've talked about it earlier on in other podcasts and previously in the season and stuff like that. It's a must-win game, but every game is a must-win game. And when people go, it's a test, and we didn't pass the test against Everton. We passed all the other tests, though, didn't we? We flying colours, pretty much. Yeah. Okay. So it doesn't matter. Arteta will say, guys, we win the game. Brush it off. Get it out your locker. Get it out your mind. Get it out your thoughts. Yeah. We have to go out there and we have to win the game. And he'll put his strongest 11 out to win the game. We always hope that there's no injuries, no red cards or anything like that. But if you don't put out your strongest team, then you're automatically giving the other team an advantage, and it's a psychological one. And even if your team still comes out and wins, you've given them a psychological edge to perhaps not give you the win, and which is why I said I don't think he would want to change too much. Yes, players in the red, and we always used to talk about that before with fatigue and stuff like that. He might go, okay, I'm taking you out. But he also does the tactical things as well. So he'll look at the Brentford team and go, they've been free scoring. So maybe I do need Tommy in there because he drifts inside to give a bit more extra cover to the midfield, which means less balls are going to come through the middle so that Brentford are a bit more nullified. So he may well do that. He might go, you know what, I may want to use Trossard in a way where he holds up the ball and links up a bit more play with Eddie. But that comes with understanding. So I don't think he will do that. I think he will go, you know what, Eddie, Martinelli, Saka, those three have what it takes to cause enough problems with the pace and everything up front. So of anybody, it's my boy Benny Blanco. But even then, I can't. It's at a push, isn't it? It's at a push. I can't really see it happening.
Yeah, I think pretty much like Brentford will be reviewing all the film of the game last week against Everton and what they did. I think we'll be looking at what they did at City when they beat City and the way they approached that game. But I think, as you guys said, we play our strongest team. I think after the two losses, obviously the first time, as Neil said, this season we've had two back-to-back losses. It'd be good to be home in front of the fans. Obviously the fans, I'm sure the Emirates is going to be rocking Saturday and Wednesday. It'd be good to get back there in front of them, and I'm sure the way the players were talking, the way they were putting their messages on social media, to put things right on Saturday, they've got the right mentality to do that. Some positives. Obviously, Jesus is back in training as well. They're looking maybe end of the month. Maybe he might be doing some behind closed doors stuff, or maybe a couple of games. So that would be vital. Obviously, with the games that we've got coming up, and obviously the fixtures we've got coming up as well. And obviously around March time we've got obviously the Europa League resumption of that. So that's going to be a good opportunity for the players that we were talking about to come in and have games that are that mean something. Last 16 of the Europa League could be against one of the big guns. That'll probably be the chance that Arteta is going to can't wait to utilise a squad a little bit more. People like Vieira and things like that to come in. just obviously before we finish up, I mean, it's great your takes on the City situation, and obviously you talked about the punishment, Steve. If they are guilty, for me, if they are guilty, and it's 100%, cast iron that they are, I think the fine is nothing. It's absolute nonsense. It's like pennies. It's like finding pennies down the back of the sofa or whatever. So it's got to be one or two things or both of them, and that's got to be points deduction. I think the points deduction probably will take into account next season because of the time scale of it, and or them getting expelled from the Premier League. But then if that happens, apparently the Championship don't want nothing to do with them. So they don't want them in there because I'm thinking of it. Well, if I'm the EFL, I want City there because it's going to be like a soap opera every week. Even though most of their players will go, it's going to be like the rebuild. Are they going to get back into the Premier League? And but then they're probably looking at it. Then they're going to have to relegate. They're going to have to relegate another club to make space for them. Then that club's going to have to be compensated. And then the other club that they go into League One is going to be pushed down to League Two. So it's going to cause a domino effect in that regard. So that could be why the expulsion might not work because of all of that issue. So I think it might be just the points deduction, 15, 20, 30 points or something crazy like that.
Well, if it possibly also a transfer embargo as well, they might say transfers for a couple of years, or a couple of seasons. Yeah. I'm thinking, So if looking at it that way, because of the knock-on effect it's going to have to the whole pyramid, really going all the way back down, because there's going to probably be certain teams that I think they're talking about the National League. Rather than having one team get promoted, they're thinking of making it 3 teams. Now, if that happened, then that would just mess that up as well, wouldn't they? They wouldn't be able to have 3 teams like this. You just have to be 2 to counteract. So I think if they do get punished, it's going to be points. Because I think that's just going to be more cut and dried sort of thing. Apparently the Premier League clubs want them kicked out. They want them. Isn't an Arsenal fella that one of the panel that's looking into it?
Yeah, apparently he's an Arsenal member. Yeah.
Oh dear. I love it.
Got all bases covered. Yeah, he might not be this season, but we said that. But
I love it.
Again, I think as I think Steve said, it's important that something is done, something substantial is done if they are guilty, because you only got to look at the news today with Man United getting apparently bought by Qatar, another Qatari family who have got I think have got a net worth of 350 billion or something like that.
Oh, great.
So you've got that. Obviously, you've got Newcastle, who are the richest club in the world. So if nothing happens to them, if they get a slap on the wrist, which is 50 million, if they are guilty, and they just get that, then that just shows to all these other guys, PSG as well, you can just do what you want. You just get a slap on the wrist, you just get a little fine. But if it's something like that, which would have a knock-on effect, because you've got to look at City as well. I mean, it's the fans really that, my friend who's a City fan, he's the one I feel for, because they didn't really, it's got nothing to do with them. And you've got to rate City because what they've done around the community. They built up that area around the stadium. They built the stadium up. They built the stadium up for the women, Academy Stadium. So much around the community building up, and jobs they provided and stuff. And obviously, you've got to tip your hat off to them for that. But he sent a message saying they don't, the Premier League don't want owners like that. They rather have an owner who uses the club's money to buy the club and then pay themselves 20 million a year, have a rundown stadium which is falling apart, and then they're just going to up and leave, which is Man United, because that's how the Glazers have run it. And you look at how City have run it in terms of what they've done. It's like literally night and day. So yeah, it's if they do get punished, then it's going to have again a knock-on effect in that regards as well. So you guys, what you thinking? Points, or you just thinking it's going to be a slap on the wrist? Allegedly,
it'll be a slap on the wrist if anything. If they had. Like I said, if the evidence they had was concrete and watertight, they'd have been straight in there to go, it's going to be points, it's going to be this, it's going to be that. They're still not sure. So more than likely, how these legal things always work out is if you've got enough money behind you, you can just keep on fighting it and challenging every single thing, because the city lawyers will look at every single detail and challenge things like the wording and what it means to them and what it means by the rule book and stuff like that. If the league was serious, it would be, this is what we found, and within the next 8 weeks, we will have a final outcome. Because you look at the Juventus situation, for example, that was conducted quite quickly. It didn't drag on.
Yeah.
So if it drags on, then it's just going to be a slap on the wrist, and then that in itself sets its own precedent. In terms of expulsion from the league, I know the effect it could have, but if that is on the table, then that should be looked at as a proper deterrent. Because we look at what happened with Rangers, for example, they went all the way down and they had to come all the way back up again. Yeah. So it should just be, well, no club is too rich to not be knocked down a few pegs. And if that be the case, there's other clubs in the Premier League that have rich history. As you said, we all feel for the fans. It's not their fault. It's got nothing to do with them. We feel for the players. It's got nothing to do with them. Yeah. But if your business is run badly, and as Neil said, not every club has their own sort of dealings in things that may not be 100% above board. Yeah. But if your breaches are 115 different things, that's a lot.
Yeah, I think that is. Yeah.
That's a lot. And if you're saying, okay, well, look, is a £5 fine, and we'll deduct you 3 points, it's totally pointless. Even if they say we deduct you 15 points, it's totally pointless. When it's happened in Italy, it's been like 20, 30 points. Yeah. Relegated, whatever. If the Championship and the EFL are saying no, they can go further down, then they have to go further down, because they're their own leagues. The Premier League can't set what those leagues determine, and if it means they have to go all the way down to come all the way back up again, let's see if their owners stick around. Because if they don't stick around, that says more about them than anything. And yes, they have built up the city and the area, and it provided jobs and stuff like that. That's what a responsible business should do. But if they've just done that to hide their dodgy dealings, then it's neither here nor there.
Well, let's see what happens. Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure again to talk to you about Arsenal and about football in general. Let's hope we bounce back and
4-0.
The Bees. 4-0. Neil's going 4-0.
I think it'll be tight.
I
think it'll be tight.
Martinelli.
And
I think it'll be tight.
Yeah, any type of win, just so we can go into that game, the next one, in a good.
Can I quickly just say, Michael? I know you want to quickly wrap it up.
Yeah.
I think now more and more I've heard both of you talk. I think it has to be an expulsion from the league, because it's going to it sets a good precedence. But you know what's going to happen? They'll get a big fine, and Man United will get a penalty.
Probably, but no. Thanks very much, guys.
Just very quickly, because I wanted to ask you, and you've got 1 second or 5 seconds to answer each one. Kid one wanted to know who should get more minutes. Who you asked to get more minutes?
I'd say Vieira.
Oh God! I would have said Marquinhos, but he's gone. So Vieira as well.
I'm going to say, I'm going to echo that and just say Vieira. There you go.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for your time. Thanks for watching. We'll be back hopefully Sunday night, because obviously we've got the game to come on Wednesday. We can have a good chat about other bits and pieces. I've been Michael Harris. He's been Neil Shah. Neil Champions No Fair Lex, and he's been they'll call me Stepley. Got it right. And we'll be back. We'll get the 49. Don't worry, we'll get the 49.
Oh damn it! We was a few seconds.
Yeah, we almost did it. We'll be back on Sunday night with a quick one, just to recap what's hopefully is going to be a bounce back win against Brentford. All that's left to say is let's go. Come on, let's get back on it.
Thanks, lads. Thank you.
Business. Cheers, guys.